In this video, we're doing another key comic book spotlight, and this time on the Scarlet Witch. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. And in this video, I'm doing another key comic book spotlight, and this time on Wanda the Scarlet Witch. Well, because it is the last episode of WandaVision today, I felt that it'd be very, very fitting to do this week's key comic book spotlight on her. And if you are new to my channel or this series, what I do with key comic book spotlight is pick a random superhero or supervillain and just point out 5 key and or grail books that the comic book collecting community often pursues when they are fans of this character. So this video isn't here necessarily to identify Spec or to talk about books that nobody has ever heard of. Rather, it's just here to give new comic book collectors or old comic book collectors some information on books that people often pursue when they love this superhero or supervillain. And in this case, I'm going to do Wanda the Scarlet Witch. But before I get into my picks, if you guys could drop me a like or a comment or subscribe if you're enjoying my content, love interacting with you guys, and let's keep this conversation going. All right, with that being said, again, with all these videos, it's always so hard for me to narrow it down to 5 picks, but I think I have a pretty good list here. And I'm sure you guys are well aware, because of the WandaVision show, there are so many key books that people have been gravitating towards in hopes for getting a piece of this show and this character. So it was hard for me to narrow it down to 5, but I think I have a good list. And let's jump into my first pick, which of course is going to be her first appearance. And her first appearance, for those who don't know, is actually X-Men number 4. And this is actually the first time that we saw what would be branded the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and was the first appearance of Scarlet Witch, Wanda, and Quicksilver, who, for those who don't know, are actually the daughter and son of Magneto. And this is a great book from the Silver Age, an early X-Men title written by Stan Lee. And this is just one of those books that, granted, it is the first appearance of 2 major heroes, but the fact that it's in an X-Men book, that Wanda and Quicksilver themselves are mutants, and the fact that now we have WandaVision, this is a book that has instantly exploded. I mean, even before WandaVision, everybody had always cherished this book because the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants were such a notable villain team, especially being spearheaded by Magneto. So this is a book that the comic book collecting community has often pursued, and for that reason, the numbers are going to be pretty high. So if I show you the numbers here, X-Men number 4 on the high end, there actually is 9.8 on the census, and that sold for $100,000 back in July of 2012. So obviously that person who has that book does not want to let it go, especially now that they have WandaVision. But you can see here on the high end, it's $100,000. Then it takes a step down on the 9.6 to $40,000, and then here on the low end, you're not going to find this book for less than anything around the $300 mark. But even then, because of WandaVision's success and because it's been so hot, this has definitely been a book that has jumped up in price. And if you want to get your hands on it, you're looking at minimum around that $400, $500 mark. So anyways, great book to have regardless. Great Silver Age books to own, even if you're not a fan of Wanda herself. This is just a classic X-Men number 4, first appearance of Wanda and first appearance of Quicksilver, and first appearance of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. All right, let's go on now to my second pick for Scarlet Witch and Wanda books, and that's actually going to be Avengers number 16. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is the first time that Wanda and Quicksilver joined the Avengers. And what's really cool about this is, as you can probably gather from the last book, being that Wanda and Quicksilver started, under the tutelage of Magneto, and because they were, a part of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, they actually started off their comic book career as villains. And over time, they actually disassociated themselves from Magneto and would eventually come across the Avengers and start to have their storyline within the Avengers team. And in this book right here, Avengers 16, they would actually join the Avengers and become superheroes moving forward. And this is kind of cool because, it's really great that in the MCU, Kevin Feige and the creative team behind it, they actually introduced us to Quicksilver and Wanda as villains in the start. And you remember in Age of Ultron, except they sort of swapped Ultron with Magneto in terms of that dynamic where they were sort of working for the bad guys. And then like in Age of Ultron, by the end of the movie, they actually became Avengers. So in Avengers 16 here, that actually is kind of where the storyline was sort of pulled from. They started as villains and then they kind of joined the team. So this is a really, really great Silver Age book to have for that reason. And on top of that, as you can see here from the cover, this is a classic cover. It is not necessarily the first time that Avengers Assemble was said, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that Avengers Assemble was put on a cover. And being that it is such a iconic catchphrase, and you see Captain America screaming it there, this is another reason just to have this book. I mean, aside from the fact that, you know, you may want to have a Wanda or Scarlet Witch collector item, this is just a great Avengers book to have. Something that, you know, I myself, who is working on an Avengers Grail Run, this is a book that I am certainly hunting. So Avengers number 16, first time that Scarlet Witch, Wanda, and Quicksilver join the Avengers and go on to have many, many heroic tales with the group as they do currently in the MCU. All right, let's move on now to my third pick here. And my third pick is actually going to be Giant Size Avengers number 4. And what is the significance of this? Well, this is actually the first time, or I guess not necessarily the first time, but the time when Vision and Scarlet Witch actually got married. And what I think is really cool about this book now is that, you know, from the show, we kind of like really brought out their relationship. And granted, they've had a long historic relationship in the Marvel comic universe. They've always been, you know, lovers and been married, and that's been a long running story. But because of the success of WandaVision, I feel like this particular dynamic, their relationship and their marriage, has really been brought to kind of like, you know, the front line of pop culture. And for that reason, I feel like this book, which was already kind of a great collector item, has sort of been elevated now into an even better collector item for WandaVision, because, you know, you see them on the cover, Vision and Wanda, they're kind of now at that point where you can't separate the two of them. You know, they almost go hand in hand. And for that reason, I think that this is a great book, being that it is their wedding and it is the book that brings them together. And, you know, as we dig into the numbers here, you can see on the high end, on a 9.8, this is going to run you around the $475 mark. So, you know, still within reach for people who are a fan of this book. And on the low end, you're not going to see too many CGC numbers, but typically speaking, this is a book that I do see selling on eBay around that $60, $70 range, which is a lot higher than what it used to be before the show began, because, you know, this was kind of a book that, you know, only the people who are really, really big fans of maybe Avengers runs or big fans of Vision and Wanda wanted to get their hands on. And now people really, you know, have gravitated to their relationship. And for that reason, this book has taken a jump in price. All right, let's move on now to my fourth pick here. And my fourth pick is actually going to be Vision and the Scarlet Witch number 1 from the 80s. And that's right, the Vision and the Scarlet Witch. Now, you're probably out there thinking like, oh, well, why this book? Well, what's so special about this? And one of the things that I like about this book, even though that this is a book that had been sort of spec'd on for WandaVision, but didn't really pay off in any sort of significant way, one of the reasons I like this book is that this is the first time you see the words Vision and Scarlet Witch on a cover. And this is their first limited series together. And I believe effectively Scarlet Witch's first, you know, kind of independent series. So for that reason, you know, if you're a fan of Wanda or a fan of Scarlet Witch, that right there just alone is sort of notable to me, that this is the first issue where you're going to have a book that says Vision and the Scarlet Witch on it. And, you know, being that WandaVision was so successful, I feel like this is a special book and a special collector item to have, you know, from here on out. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of like this book as a collector item. Not to mention that, I just think this is an amazing cover. I mean, I really love, you know, the blocking with the characters here. I think it's really, really dynamic. I love that vintage sort of like Scarlet Witch costume. I love that they did that in the MCU where they had her kind of in her Halloween outfit. And I feel like this particular cover really brings emphasis to that costume. And for that reason, I personally like it as a collector book. So Vision and Scarlet Witch, number 1, definitely something that is a great book to have if you are a fan of the Scarlet Witch character. And here you see on the CGC census, a 9.8, still going to run you $150. There was a sale in January of 2021. And then on the low end, you're not going to find too many CGC copies of this book, but typically speaking, when I look on eBay, this is a book that you see being sold around that $15-$20 mark or so. So Vision and Scarlet Witch, definitely a book that's within reach for people who are fans of these characters and want to have a little piece of their Marvel history. All right, let's move on now to my last pick. And my last pick is going to be House of M #7. And for what is the significance of this? Well, this is the book, the very famous book where Wanda whispers no more mutants. This is the book that has that now infamous panel where she said no more mutants and wished away half of all of the mutants on Earth. And this is just overall has been one of the great storylines in all of Marvel Comics, the House of M storyline. Of course, written by Brian Michael Bendis, was an 8-issue run. So, the entire series in its own right is worth collecting if you are a fan of Wanda, because you get a great story out of this. But this specific issue, #7, this is the one where she says the words "no more mutants." And granted, we have not had her say "no more mutants" yet in the MCU, but I gotta believe that eventually we are going to get some version of a House of M storyline. And when and if we do get that, 100% they will have her say no more mutants, and they'll have the composition be that, just the close-up of her lips and her chin, and it'll be just like the panel, just in the way that the snap kind of was brought to life by Thanos. I'm sure that this will be an epic moment in the MCU. And for that reason, House of M #7, it has, in my mind, become one of the best collector items when it comes to Wanda. Not to mention that, I mean, look at this cover. This is a beautiful painted cover with the death of Quicksilver, which of course we've got some version of that already in the MCU. So for that reason, this is kind of an awesome book to own, because, it kind of represents what we've already seen occur in Age of Ultron. So as we dig into the numbers here, we see that there's actually not too many CGC numbers to be found. And one of the things that I've seen with this book online is, when I dig into the eBay numbers, I see good deals being sold for this book, $10, $15, maybe $20 if it's like a pristine, crystal clean copy. But for that reason, I would actually say that this is probably one of the more underrated books for Wanda, because this is not only just a great book for fans of hers, but I feel like this is a book that everyone who is a comic book collector has, now heard of, the infamous No More Mutants line, and this is the book that it took place. Anyways, that is all I have for this video. Those are my 5 Key and Grail comic books as they relate to Wanda and the Scarlet Witch. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have any of these books? I'm sure a lot of you guys out there have purchased some Wanda books recently with WandaVision. I mean, how could you not? Like, the show has been so amazing. It's got me so excited. I can't wait to watch, the season finale. Hopefully no spoilers in the chat, right? No spoilers in the chat. Do everyone a favor and don't ruin it for everybody. But anyways, let me know what you guys think. Do you have any other Wanda books that you feel are worth getting when you're a fan of this character? Drop me a like, comment, or subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I will see you in the next video.